under the roof. It's the Highlanders versus the Reds. We have no new injuries for the Highlanders, but for the Reds, we have Dane Zander, who limped off with a right leg injury in the returns column. We have Peri Peri Chicken. We think he's likely. He's been ill the last couple of weeks, so we think he is there or thereabouts and should be on the field, hopefully. Will Tucker and Josh Dixon, they're both maybes after their concussion. We have, hopefully, James O'Connor, I think, all but confirmed if things are going well for returning from his concussion, and Hunter Paistrami, as Cargie calls him, a chance after his MCL injury.
Yeah, they said he'd be back a few weeks ago.
No, they pushed it back. It's actually meant to be round 15, but I think they said he's a chance for this one.
Sorry, I mean, a few weeks ago, I think they said 14, didn't they? They said he's ahead of schedule, though? Or...
Yeah, 15. He's touch and go. He could play this week, but... Guys, big game. Landers in 9th, the Reds in 7th. Obviously, it's a very tight table for that last 1 or 2 spots in finals of the Tars now, essentially locking down one of them. How do we think it's going to go? The big thing is the Highlanders have the Blues next week. So surely this is all on the line for them this week. They've got to win now.
Yeah, you got to win your home games as well, you know.
I think 4 points behind the Reds. The Reds have Ndrua next week as well, but mind you, that is in Fiji. So if they're gonna catch up their 4 points, this is a really, really important one for them. Look, if those locks are back, we mentioned a few of them. I mean, we mentioned 3 of them. For the Highlanders, does it mean we get to see Frizzell have a rest? At least have a rest from the locks. He's done pretty well there in the last couple of weeks, despite not being a lock. But in that back row, I mean, we could see him fill in somewhere, but they've got Withy, Harmon, Renton, or do we see Michele Tu'u coming back into that starting side?
I don't know. I feel like given how they've treated the season so far, we're probably looking more likely at a Withy, Harmon, Renton. They just seem to kind of like that work rate, and we still don't know why they hate Marino Michele too, but they seem to. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's what they run out. If the locks are back and they do end up resting Frizzell. But is that the same way you see it, Harry?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've kind of shown their cards, and that is that Tu'u hasn't actually impressed them coming back from his injury. Maybe not quite as 100%, but I do think he's building. I think he's making better and better impressions when he's coming off the bench. So anything could happen, but that I would tend to kind of go the same as you guys.
Very good. Aaron Smith's his last game at Forsyth Bar, 183 caps for the Highlanders. So just like we talked about Alan Wynne-Jones, Aaron Smith will be one of the next few ones we can start running down in the pod caps. Huge for him. So I feel like the team has given him a lot. He seems to be a real kind of cult figurehead there. So hopefully, the boys will want to get up and send him on his way. Nels, you've got some thoughts on Nareki, your boy.
Yeah, I think Aaron Smith, he's the second most Super Rugby capped Kiwi of all time. But yeah, look, my boy Nareki, he's going to provide, and he has been the last couple of weeks, providing the punch that the Highlanders have been missing early on in the year. Yes, Thomas Umar Jensen has done it through times, but not for a consistent run of time throughout a whole match. But yeah, he's going to run circles around Vunivalu, someone who's been back to his quiet best. And by that I mean quiet, not best, but mainly quiet. If the Reds have any brains, they're going to be kicking their high balls to that corner, because Vunivalu can get up in the air and there's a height mismatch for sure. But if not, just expect Nareki to run around him 10 times in this match.
And the other one for me was the centre pairing. They said that they put Gilbert in at 12 last week for a tactical change, which I think worked pretty well. He's just exceptional at the moment wherever he's on the field. But I wonder how they're going to play it. Do they push Thomas Umunga Jensen, who's been one of their best players, back into the 12 jersey and push Gilbert to fullback? Or could they give Fatuli Paya a rest and maybe put Tudge at outside centre to complement Gilbert as well? I'm not sure which way they go. I think logic says they try and stick with a formula they've used more often, Tudge at 12, Gilbert at 15, but I wouldn't mind seeing it the other way around as well.
Yeah, look, I think Gilbert's he's probably been he's been the best back for the Highlanders, so he's your first pick on the field, and the beauty is he can play anywhere. But for mine, Tudge, I mean, look, Nelson nailed it saying Nareki's that punch they've been missing, but that's because Nareki's on the outside and he can get around everyone. Tudge, there's a few games when he was providing the punch, but the thing is, he's having to go through the entire team in the middle of the field. And there's only so much you can do when you're doing that. So there's a few games he solidly put the team on his shoulders and was the only one getting them go forward. So I'm still, it enrages me that TUJ is not out there every game starting because he's immense. But I hadn't even thought of that idea of Gilbert at 12 and Tudge at 13. I mean, I'd go with that then. I think Gilbert plays his best footy at 15 personally for the Highlanders, and is a much better option than Connor Gunn-Batcher. But yeah,
bit of a conspiracy. Gilbert, he's now had 2 starts in the last handful of matches at that 12 jersey instead of Tudge against the Rebels, against the Waratahs. Whether it's something they don't think they need as much of that physicality and they want to play a little bit smarter in field position around Aussie teams, I'm not sure, but it's another Aussie team. Maybe we get to see Gilbert there at 12 and direct them around with that extra boot.
I like that made-up conspiracy. Very good. Guys, Freddie Burns versus Hunt. I feel like Freddie Burns is probably taking this jersey more and more each week. I think maybe not quite as strong as a couple of weeks ago, but it would surprise me if they rotate it around at this point. I think Burns has been given the keys. And if they're going to go anywhere in this competition, it's going to be off the back of him. And I also think that Hunt looks pretty good coming off the bench with that little bit of energy as well. And it gives him the option to play at 10 or 15, however they really feel like using him.
I agree. I think it's Burns is much more effective starting than coming off the bench, and Hunt is probably more effective coming off the bench than starting, it seems, for that team. So kind of a no-brainer. The Reds, Nels.
So the Reds have a zookeeper in their midst with Fa'angasi, who he played for the Highlanders back in 2019. And he said, hopefully we can keep the zoo quiet going down to the south of New Zealand there. So zookeeper, mate, is that going to be enough to keep these fans in the zoo quiet, Cargie?
Is that, are you calling him the zookeeper purely based that he said, hopefully we can keep them quiet? Like, it's not like he's really gone out there and gone, I'm the zookeeper, we're going to shut the zoo up, you know? He's just said,
they're the zoo, and he is hopeful that they can keep him quiet. But he's been in there. He knows how they work, you know? He's actually worked with the animals at the zoo, you know what I mean?
He does. Well, look, I have to say, I'm not so confident that will happen at all, particularly given that the Highlanders scrum has been one of the best, if not the best, in the competition, and they're very likely to have Ethan de Groot, Makaleo, and Ainsley back there. I think they're going to be shutting the hell up out of Fa'agasi this week. I think they're going to be giving it to the Red Scrum. So, unfortunately, I think the zoo is going to be in full effect, and that's why maybe he didn't go too hard on that, and just with the little, hopefully we can keep him quiet. So, Harry, what do you want to talk about? Sorry.
Look, I think Harry Wilson has had 2 rests on the bench, and I think he's looked really good bringing the energy. Sarah Ura had a blinder 2 weeks ago, but maybe didn't have that same kind of impact last week. So I think you'll see that revert. I think you'll see Wilson back to the 8 jersey and making his standard 20 carries and 15 tackles per game.
Yeah, what do you reckon that was for? Just giving Sarah Ura a crack, or just trying to make Wilson do something different, like provide impact or something, impetus? I don't know.
I think it was just giving him a rest. He's got such a big work rate. But the thing I'm questioning as well is, when does Fraser McWright or Liam Wright get a rest? Like, those 2 blokes just play 80 minutes every single week, don't they? Sure,
mate, they're both young. They're spring chickens, mate. Play them all day, bro. They're fine.
I mean, I'm fine with it as well because they're a Nelsonized fantasy team. But I just think at some point, surely with every other player needing a Wallabies rest, or Liam Wright just a rest.
I think Fraser McWright the only player who has literally played every minute of the entire season? I think in the whole competition, I believe he is. So great pick. But
one thing on that as well, Cargie, is we just talked about bringing Wilson off the bench. They've also brought on a new front row before half time in the last 2 weeks. So, and Faisler's doing really, really well coming off the bench. Wilson's doing really, really well coming off the bench. So, I mean, it's something that, you know, has been an interesting concept by Thorne there, but it seems to be doing pretty well.
Well, they have. I actually think they'll go again, because I think they said that the starting Reds front row for the last 2 weeks is their best scrummaging front row. And against the Highlanders, that's absolutely what you need to start with. But there's no doubt that reserve front row is their most impactful and probably best across the park. So I think it's a good tactic, and it suits the depth of their front row really well.
And I reckon he'll be even more revolutionary this week. We'll see that early sub. That'll come at 20 minutes. It'll just be, you know what I mean? It'll be like
after
first
the
20.
Fourth long arm penalty, you reckon?
Yeah, that's it. But no, I think the big one for me in this game is obviously the Reds copped a bit of a reality check from a very strong Blues side last week at home after the high of defeating the Chiefs. But I think, often people read into too much, takeaways from a game. But I do think having beaten the Chiefs in New Zealand will resonate to be like, look, we're going over there. This is just another game. We can definitely beat the Highlanders in Dunedin. So,
I genuinely think everyone thinks they can beat the Highlanders in Dunedin. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just think that everyone thinks they can right now. The Rebels almost did, and I think the Reds will back themselves as well. I'm going to go straight off the bat. The Reds, I tip the Rebels, tipping the Reds by 3 points.
I'm going to say the Reds are going to get it done. It's going to be off the boot of a kick, and I'm going to say it's going to be 2 points.
Well, I'm not going to share the faith. I'm going to say the Highlanders are going to win this, and I'll just go by 3. Sorry, boys.
You had Australia. Let's get it.
Fair enough.